The late October sky bled orange and purple over the winding roads near the Hudson Valley, a painterly backdrop to a scene of utter frustration. Isabel Vance, CEO of the rapidly ascending Aura Cosmetics, tapped an impatient rhythm on the leather-wrapped steering wheel of her state-of-the-art, and currently very stationary, luxury SUV. Dead. Utterly, infuriatingly dead. Golden leaves skittered across the asphalt, dancing in the chilly wind that whistled faintly around the car's silent frame. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and rising panic. Unbelievable, Isabel muttered, glancing in the rearview mirror at the peaceful face of her 5-year-old daughter, Maya, asleep in her car seat. A wave of protective anxiety washed over her, momentarily eclipsing the looming disaster of the missed investor meeting. This meeting wasn't just important, it was pivotal. Years of work, countless sleepless nights, the very future of Aura Cosmetics potentially hinged on the next few hours in the city. And here she was, stranded, miles from anywhere significant. A CEO rendered completely helpless by a machine. The irony wasn't lost on her, and it wasn't amusing. She'd already tried roadside assistance. The detached voice on the other end offered a platitude and a time frame. Due to high call volume, the earliest we can dispatch is approximately 2 hours. 2 hours? She'd almost laughed. In 2 hours, the investors would be enjoying post-deal cocktails, likely with a competitor. In 2 hours, her meticulously built momentum could evaporate. I have my young daughter in the car, she'd pleaded, hating the tremor in her voice. I have a critical meeting. It made no difference. Resources were strained. She was just another number in a queue. Ending the call with a sharp click, Isabel let her head fall back against the headrest, the smooth leather cool against her skin. She squeezed her eyes shut. Control. Her entire life was built on maintaining it, projecting it. Aura Cosmetics thrived on her vision, her drive, her unwavering composure. But the sleek suit, the confident posture, it was all a carefully constructed facade, and right now, cracks were showing. The isolation of the empty road pressed in. No other cars passed. The vibrant sunset was fading fast into a gloomy twilight, deepening the shadows beneath the trees lining the road. Helplessness was a foreign, deeply uncomfortable sensation. She took a deep breath, trying to center herself, trying to think. Her phone had spotty service here, another lovely detail. What now? Just sit here? Wait? It wasn't in her nature. The silence stretched, broken only by Maya's soft breathing and the rustle of leaves outside. Isabel scanned the empty road again, a knot tightening in her stomach. Just when hope seemed entirely lost, a faint, unexpected sound drifted through the quiet, the crunch of boots on gravel, slow and steady, drawing nearer. As the silence pressed in, a sound broke the stillness, the crunch of boots on gravel. Isabel looked up, her hand instinctively tightening on the door handle, heart thumping against her ribs. A figure solidified in the twilight, walking steadily towards her, pushing an old, slightly battered bicycle. He wasn't what she expected out here. Dressed in faded, durable-looking overalls, smeared with what looked like grease, and sturdy work boots, he seemed utterly out of place beside the gleaming, inert metal of her imported SUV. Worlds apart. Yet, as he drew closer, she noticed his face, weathered by sun and wind, but his eyes, when they met hers briefly through the tinted glass, were startlingly clear. Direct. Lacking the calculation she saw so often in boardrooms. He stopped a respectful distance away, propping his bicycle on its kickstand. Everything all right here? His voice was calm, low, carrying easily in the quiet air. Isabel hesitated, years of caution warring with her immediate predicament. The world was too uncertain, too full of risks, to simply trust a stranger on an empty road. Especially one who looked, well, like him. She cracked the window just enough to speak, her voice tight, controlled. My car seems to have stalled. I'm waiting for assistance. The man nodded slowly, his gaze taking in the expensive vehicle, then returning to her face framed in the narrow opening. Roadside can take a while out here, he observed, matter-of-factly. He gestured vaguely towards the front of the SUV with a calloused hand. Mind if I take a look? Used to wrench on these things down in the city. Sometimes it's something simple. A mechanic? Her internal alarms roared. Letting a stranger tinker with her car? But the alternative was sitting here for 2 hours, missing the meeting, letting Aura's future potentially slip away. His expression held no threat, only a quiet sort of seriousness. A genuine offer? It seemed almost archaic in its simplicity. You know about these engines? She asked, suspicion lacing her tone. A faint smile touched his lips. Enough to know they can be temperamental. Pop the hood? She weighed her options for another 10 seconds, then pulled the lever. The heavy hood sprang open with a soft whoosh. The man, Elias Thorne, he introduced himself a moment later as he peered into the engine bay, his movements surprisingly efficient, began his examination. His hands, though rough, moved with a practiced confidence, tracing lines, checking connections. Looks like your cooling system, he diagnosed after a few minutes, straightening up. Got a leak somewhere, engine's probably overheating. I think I can patch it well enough to get you where you're going, but you'll need a proper repair shop soon. Isabel Vance, she supplied her own name, feeling oddly formal. You worked in the city? Another lifetime ago, he replied noncommittally, already reaching into a worn canvas pouch slung over his shoulder, producing a small selection of tools. He set to work, focused and economical in his motions. Just then, a sleepy whimper came from the back seat. Maya was stirring. Isabel quickly unbuckled and slid into the back, murmuring reassurances. It's okay, sweetie. Mommy's here. The car is just taking a little rest. Over Maya's head, she saw Elias glance back, his expression softening slightly as he caught sight of the child. He offered a small, almost shy wave before turning back to the engine. 20 minutes later, Elias wiped his hands on a rag. That should hold it for now, he announced. Keep an eye on the temperature gauge, but you should make it to the city okay. Drive carefully. Relief washed over Isabel, potent and immediate. She reached instinctively for her wallet, pulling out several large bills. This was the transaction she understood. Thank you so much, Mr. Thorne. For your time, your tools. He held up a hand, stopping her. His clear eyes met hers directly, and there was no mistaking the sincerity in them. No need for that, Ms. Vance. Keep your money. He gestured vaguely down the road. Just couldn't pass up someone who needed help. We look out for each other out here. Isabel stared, momentarily speechless. No payment? It was unexpected. Disarming. People didn't just do things like this without expecting something in return. Not in her world. But, you spent your time, she protested weakly. He simply smiled, a genuine expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. It's all right. Really? Just promise me you'll get it looked at properly. He began gathering his tools. Flustered, feeling an unfamiliar mix of gratitude and confusion, Isabel fumbled in her purse and retrieved a sleek business card. It felt inadequate, a flimsy bridge between their disparate realities, but it was the only currency she could offer. Well, thank you again, Elias Thorne. Here are my contact details. If you ever need anything. He took the card, gave it a polite, brief glance, and tucked it into his overall pocket with a nod. Drive safe, Isabel Vance. The engine started smoothly, purring back to life. Isabel offered one last, slightly bewildered thank you through the window before carefully pulling away. As the distance grew, she watched Elias Thorne in her rearview mirror, a solitary figure retrieving his bicycle on the darkening roadside. The engine hummed smoothly, carrying her towards her crucial meeting, but her thoughts lingered, inexplicably snagged on the quiet roadside and the straightforward, unexpected kindness she'd just received. The successful meeting with the investors felt distant. Anticlimactic, even. Isabel Vance navigated the post-meeting handshakes and clipped smiles with practiced ease, her mind sharp, her responses precise. Aura Cosmetics had secured the next round of funding. A win. Definitely a win. Yet, driving back through the city gridlock later that day, her thoughts kept drifting back to that quiet roadside, the scent of damp earth and autumn leaves, and the steady gaze of the man in the worn overalls. Elias Thorne. It was absurd, really. A fleeting chance encounter. But his quiet competence, his utter lack of expectation, it lingered. The next day, taking her SUV to her usual high-end European auto specialist confirmed his skill. Marco, the meticulous head mechanic who usually treated every vehicle like a temperamental opera singer, raised an eyebrow after examining the temporary fix on the cooling hose. "Who did this patch job, Ms. Vance?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Impressive improvisation. Solid work, the kind you don't often see outside a dedicated pro shop anymore. Saved you a much bigger headache, probably kept the engine from seizing." Isabel murmured something non-committal about unexpected roadside help, but Marco's words solidified a resolve that had been quietly forming. That evening, back in her minimalist penthouse apartment, Isabel stared at the contact card Elias had accepted. It felt like an artifact from another planet compared to the worn piece of paper napkin she found tucked in her purse later, the one on which she'd actually jotted down his number after she'd insisted, almost awkwardly, that she might need to ask a follow-up question about the repair. His handwriting was surprisingly neat, utilitarian. Calling him felt complicated. Why? Gratitude? Yes, certainly. But beneath that? Curiosity. A desire to understand someone so bafflingly different from the driven, ambitious, often transactional people who populated her world. What possible connection could there be? Still, Marco's praise provided the perfect pretext. She dialed, rehearsing a casual, appreciative tone. He answered on the third ring, his voice as calm and steady as she remembered. "Elias Thorne." "Mr. Thorne, hello. It's Isabel Vance." A pause. Did he even remember? "My car, the one you assisted with yesterday?" "Ah, Ms. Vance." "Yes. Is everything all right with the vehicle?" "Yes, perfectly fine, thank you. In fact, my mechanic was quite impressed with your handiwork." She relayed Marco's comments. "I wanted to thank you properly. I was hoping you might allow me to take you to dinner." She held her breath. It felt like stepping off a familiar path. He hesitated for a beat. "That's very kind of you, Ms. Vance, but really, it's not necessary." "Please," Isabel insisted, surprised by her own persistence. "I'd like to." Maybe it was the mention of Maya wanting to thank him again, a white lie. Maya was 5, but effective, that finally swayed him. He agreed, suggesting a quiet, unassuming place downtown she'd never heard of. The restaurant was the antithesis of her usual haunts: warm lighting, simple wooden tables, no pretension. Elias was already there, dressed in a clean flannel shirt and jeans, looking younger, somehow, less weathered than he had on the roadside. Still entirely out of sync with her world, yet possessing a quiet self-assurance that was oddly compelling. The conversation started hesitantly, bridging the gap between CEO and what was he exactly? He spoke about leaving the city mechanic trade. It changed, he said, swirling the water in his glass. Became less about fixing things, more about pushing sales, hitting targets. Big chains squeezing out the little guys. A shadow flickered in his eyes, a hint of old bitterness, perhaps, or just resignation. "Wasn't for me anymore." He described moving upstate, finding work, and eventually peace, at Willow Creek Farm, focusing on organic farming. "It's honest work. Your hands in the dirt, you know what you've accomplished at the end of the day." Then, with quiet candor, he mentioned the broken engagement years ago. Things got tight financially when the garage started struggling. She wanted a different future. He shrugged, a simple gesture that spoke volumes about past pain stoically borne. His openness disarmed Isabel. Before she quite knew how, she was sharing her own story, not the polished Aura Cosmetics origin myth, but the real one. Starting with natural soap experiments in her tiny apartment kitchen, the exhilaration and terror of the first big orders, the relentless hustle. And then, the harder part, meeting Maya's father, the whirlwind romance, the marriage that crumbled just as Aura began to take flight, leaving her with a broken heart, an infant daughter, and a fledgling empire to build alone. It wasn't easy, she admitted, the understatement hanging in the air. "Some days, I ran on nothing but caffeine and sheer terror. It was more than she'd reveal to almost anyone, the carefully guarded vulnerability beneath the CEO armor. Elias simply listened, his steady gaze holding empathy, not pity or judgment. A connection, fragile but real, sparked between them in the candlelit intimacy of the small restaurant. The following weekend, she drove upstate with Maya for a visit to Willow Creek Farm. It was another world entirely. Rolling green hills unfolded under a vast blue sky, rows of vibrant organic vegetables stretched across fertile fields, and the air hummed with the sounds of nature, not traffic. Elias, back in his work clothes, greeted them warmly, instantly putting Maya at ease. He led them through the fields, patiently explaining the difference between heirloom tomatoes, showing Maya how to gently pick ripe strawberries, his connection to the land palpable. Isabel watched him interact with her daughter, his natural kindness and quiet reverence for the living world around them striking a chord deep within her. This was authenticity. It wasn't curated or branded, it just was. She saw the pride he took in the tangible results of his labor, a stark contrast to the often abstract victories and pressures of her own corporate existence. She felt a pull, an unexpected attraction to his grounded reality, even as she recognized the vast gulf separating their lives. Building trust felt strangely easy here, amidst the scent of earth and growing things. Their shared pasts, marked by different kinds of loss and resilience, formed an unlikely foundation. As the afternoon light softened, casting long shadows across the fields, Isabel felt a rare sense of peace settle over her. The weekend's visits became a tentative routine, islands of quiet authenticity in her otherwise high-stakes life. But the demands of that life, the relentless pace of Aura Cosmetics, waited just beyond the farm's tranquil borders. As she drove back towards the city that Sunday evening, the calm of Willow Creek Farm still clinging to her, she couldn't know that the carefully balanced world she inhabited was about to be thrown into chaos. The tranquility of Willow Creek Farm felt like a dream dissolving as Isabel's sleek car merged back onto the highway, the city skyline slowly reasserting its dominance on the horizon. That sense of peace, however fragile, was a memory before her tires even hit Manhattan pavement Monday morning. The chaos erupted not with a bang, but with a high-priority email notification flashing insistently on her screen. Urgent. From their primary EU distributor. Her stomach plummeted as she read. Contamination flags. An anomaly detected in the organic certification testing of a key botanical extract used in their largest export batch of Aura Cosmetics signature serum, currently en route to fulfillment centers across Europe. Potential recall. Contract nullification clauses invoked. Millions on the line. Her company's carefully cultivated reputation for purity threatened. The ensuing days blurred into a nightmare montage of frantic video conferences, tense legal consultations, and late nights hunched over lab reports under the harsh fluorescent glare of the Aura Cosmetics headquarters. Panic rippled through her executive team, their usual confidence synergy dissolving into hushed anxieties and finger-pointing. Isabel tried to project calm, to steer the ship through the storm, but the pressure was immense, suffocating. She felt the weight of every employee's livelihood, every investor's dollar, pressing down on her. Sleep became a luxury, snatched in 2-hour increments on the office couch. Her temper frayed, she snapped at her usually unflappable assistant over a misplaced file, the harsh words echoing in the suddenly too quiet space. Isolation wrapped around her, cold and complete, despite the constant presence of her team. They looked to her for answers she didn't have. As if summoned by the scent of crisis, her ex-husband, Richard, called. Not with concern, but with the thinly veiled condescension that had characterized the end of their marriage. Heard Aura's hit a bit of turbulence, Isabel, he drawled, his voice smooth as poison. Guess running a real company isn't quite like playing with fancy soaps and lotions in the kitchen, is it? Maybe stick to what you know. The call ended abruptly, leaving Isabel shaking with a familiar mix of fury and inadequacy. His dismissal, his assumption of her failure, struck a raw nerve, amplifying her own spiraling fears. That night, staring blankly at spreadsheets forecasting devastating losses, the carefully constructed walls around Isabel Vance finally crumbled. She felt utterly adrift, the polished CEO drowning in a sea of potential ruin. On impulse, driven by a desperate need for something, anything outside this vortex of corporate disaster, she found herself dialing Elias Thorne's number, the simple digits a lifeline clutched in the dark. Elias? Her voice broke on his name, thick with unshed tears. I think I'm going to lose everything. Aura, it's all falling apart. The words tumbled out, a torrent of fear, frustration, and the crushing weight of responsibility she'd shouldered alone for so long. She didn't edit, didn't strategize. She just let the raw vulnerability spill into the phone line connecting her glass tower to his quiet world. He didn't interrupt. Didn't offer solutions or platitudes. He just listened, his silence a comforting presence across the distance. When she finally choked back a sob, exhausted, his voice came, calm and steady as the earth he worked. It sounds really hard, Isabel. Truly hard. A pause, then, fear, it's a natural thing when the ground feels like it's shaking beneath you. But facing it down, not letting it swallow you whole? That takes real strength. And you have that. I've seen it. Simple words, yet they landed with profound weight, devoid of the frantic energy or false optimism surrounding her. Just quiet, unwavering belief. A stark contrast to Richard's scorn, to the panicked whispers in her own office. Come up to the farm tomorrow, he suggested gently. Just for the day. Bring Maya. Step away from it, breathe some fresh air. Too drained to argue, or even think, she agreed. The next morning, driving upstate felt like escaping a battlefield. She arrived at Willow Creek Farm feeling hollowed out, exhaustion etched onto her face. Elias met them not with probing questions, but with a thermos of warm herbal tea and a quiet understanding in his eyes. He didn't push her to talk about the business crisis. Instead, he led Maya off to check on some newly hatched chicks, leaving Isabel to simply sit on the porch swing, the gentle rhythm a soothing balm. Later, after a simple lunch of fresh bread, cheese, and vegetables harvested just hours before, he walked with her towards a small, secluded pond shimmering at the edge of the woods. Water lilies dotted the surface, and among them, vibrant lotus flowers stood tall, their perfect pink and white blossoms seemingly untouched by the murky water below. My favorite spot, Elias said quietly, gesturing towards the blooms. Whenever things feel tangled, I come here. He sat on a smooth, sun-warmed boulder at the water's edge. Isabel sank down beside him, weariness settling deep in her bones. Lotus flowers, he continued, his gaze on the water. They grow up through the mud, don't they? Find their way through all that muck to bloom clean and beautiful right on the surface. They don't hide where they come from, they just rise above it. He turned his clear eyes to her. Reminds me of you, Isabel. She looked at him, surprised. It wasn't flattery, it was a simple observation, offered with the same quiet sincerity as his help on the roadside. I don't feel very strong right now, she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Doesn't matter how you feel, he countered gently but firmly. Strength isn't about never feeling weak or afraid. It's about what you do next. You built a company from nothing, raised a daughter on your own, weathered storms before. This is another storm. You'll find your way through. She sat there for a long time, watching the dragonfly skim the water, absorbing the peace of the sanctuary he offered. His faith in her, steady and unquestioning, was like sunlight penetrating the fog of her fear. It didn't magically solve the massive problems waiting back at Aura Cosmetics, the potential export failure, the looming recall. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt different. A tiny spark of resilience, her own inner strength, began to flicker back to life, nurtured by the quiet farmer and the stubborn beauty of the lotus flowers. The crisis hadn't vanished, the path ahead was still fraught with obstacles, but the suffocating fear had loosened its grip. She returned to the city not just as a CEO fighting for her company, but as a woman anchored by an unexpected source of strength, ready to face the storm. Armed with a quiet resolve sparked by Elias's unwavering faith, Isabel Vance walked back into the gleaming headquarters of Aura Cosmetics the next morning transformed. The brittle tension was gone, replaced by a focused intensity that radiated through the emergency board meeting she convened. The despair that had gripped her team just days before began to recede as Isabel, calm and decisive, laid out not just a damage control plan, but a bold strategy for rebirth. The EU situation is serious, she acknowledged, her voice steady, meeting each executive's gaze. We take full responsibility. Full transparency, immediate recall initiation. But this isn't the end. This is a pivot. She outlined the plan with steely determination, implementing the most rigorous quality control protocols in the industry, exceeding every standard to rebuild trust. More crucially, they would drastically refocus efforts, pouring resources into the domestic market they'd perhaps neglected during their aggressive global expansion. And the centerpiece? Fast tracking the development and launch of Pure Nature, the new line conceived from the ethos of places like Willow Creek Farm. This line isn't just about organic ingredients, Isabel declared, passion igniting her voice. It's about authenticity, traceability, a genuine connection to the source. It's everything Aura stands for at its core. Her conviction was contagious. The air in the room shifted from fear to a cautious, then growing, determination. The fight was back on. The following months were a whirlwind of relentless work. Isabel led the charge, overseeing the meticulous overhaul of supply chains, navigating the complex recall process with transparency, and pouring her energy into the Pure Nature launch. Inspired by the simplicity and integrity she'd witnessed at Willow Creek Farm and increasingly, in Elias himself, the marketing campaign focused on real stories, natural beauty, and ethical sourcing. Against all odds, it struck a chord. Deeply. While the EU market required painstaking rebuilding, the domestic response to Pure Nature was phenomenal, exceeding even Isabel's most optimistic projections. Customers, weary of synthetic promises, embraced its message of grounded authenticity. Aura Cosmetics wasn't just surviving, it was undergoing a powerful turnaround. Then came the unexpected call. Summit Holdings, a global conglomerate with a rapidly expanding portfolio in sustainable ventures, requested a meeting. Their vice president, Jong Minho, a man known for his sharp intellect and sharp pursuits, arrived flanked by analysts. They weren't just kicking the tires, they'd been watching Pure Nature's meteoric rise. Summit saw synergy. They saw potential. They saw a brand perfectly aligned with their multi-billion-dollar push into the conscious consumer market. Their offer, laid out across Isabel's polished conference table, was staggering: a massive capital investment, access to their unparalleled global distribution network, a strategic partnership designed to make Pure Nature a household name worldwide. Isabel listened, maintained her professional composure, asked incisive questions. Inside, however, her heart hammered. This was it. The kind of validation, the scale of opportunity, she'd dreamed of. But the negotiations that followed were fraught with tension. Summit wanted efficiency, rapid scaling, and control. Their proposed sourcing mandates threatened the small farm network, the very soul of Pure Nature's authentic appeal. Isabel found herself in a familiar battleground: explosive growth versus core values. One weekend, walking the quiet fields of Willow Creek Farm with Elias, she voiced her dilemma. They want to change the sourcing, Elias. Make it more efficient. It could compromise everything Pure Nature stands for, but the opportunity, it's immense. Elias stopped, turning to face her, his expression serious. Scaling is one thing, Isabel, he said quietly. Losing the why behind it all is another. That connection to the land, those farmers, that's the heart of it, isn't it? Don't trade the heart for a bigger cage. His words, simple and direct, cut through the corporate jargon and financial projections. They reminded her of the lotus pond, of her own rekindled strength. Armed with that clarity, Isabel returned to the negotiations. She fought tooth and nail, pushing back on control clauses, proposing innovative models that protected her ethical sourcing principles while still offering Summit the growth they demanded. It was grueling, but she held her ground, ultimately securing a deal that felt like a true partnership, not a hostile takeover. She called Elias the moment the ink was dry, breathless with excitement and relief. We did it. On our terms. That evening, they celebrated at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the glittering city skyline. Isabel wore a dress that shimmered like champagne. Elias, looking unexpectedly striking in a well-cut dark suit borrowed for the occasion, raised his glass to hers. To Aura. And to the woman who leads it. As the celebration wound down, a familiar flicker of vulnerability surfaced in Isabel. It's incredible, she confided, swirling the wine in her glass. But, am I ready for this, Elias? This huge corporate machine? What if I lose sight of what matters? What if I get lost? He reached across the small table, his rough hand covering hers. His touch was grounding, real. "You won't," he said, his gaze steady and sure. "You built Aura on authenticity, Isabel. Summit needs that as much as you need them. Just, don't lose that heart. Your heart." His faith in her, so freely given, was overwhelming. Later, walking beside him along the river promenade, the city lights dancing on the dark water, the carefully constructed walls around her own heart finally dissolved. "Elias," she began, her voice soft, hesitant. These last few months, you've become indispensable. I honestly don't think I could have weathered this storm without you." He stopped, turning to face her fully, the city's ambient glow catching the sincerity in his eyes. "Isabel," he said, his voice deeper now. "From that first day on the road, I was drawn to you. Your strength, even when you were stranded. But I thought." He hesitated. "Our worlds, they seemed too different. A farmer and a CEO. Different?" Isabel echoed, a small smile touching her lips. "Maybe." She looked up at him, meeting his gaze directly. "Or maybe the differences make us fit. Your calm balances my chaos. Your connection to the earth grounds my ambition." The space between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Time seemed to suspend itself. Slowly, naturally, inevitably, he leaned down, and she rose to meet him. Their first kiss wasn't frantic or desperate, but tender, searching. A quiet culmination under the vast urban sky, sweet and profound, sealing a turning point that felt both astonishing and perfectly right. The city hummed around them, a witness to the quiet collision of two vastly different lives. Under the canopy of glittering lights, a tentative future began to take shape, born from a chance encounter and nurtured by shared vulnerability and unexpected love. The city hummed around them, but in the aftermath of that kiss by the river, Isabel and Elias existed in a quiet space of their own making. The tentative future hinted at that night began to solidify in the ensuing months. The strategic partnership with Summit Holdings moved forward, infused with the hard-won clauses Isabel had fought for, ensuring Pure Nature's ethical sourcing remained its unwavering core. And as Aura Cosmetics, powered by Summit's global reach, saw Pure Nature blossom into an international sensation, celebrated precisely for its steadfast authenticity, Isabel found her personal world undergoing an equally profound transformation. Building a life together wasn't a sudden merger, but a slow, organic weaving of two disparate threads. Elias didn't just visit on weekends anymore. Gradually, inevitably, his presence became a fixture in Isabel's sleek, minimalist penthouse. His well-worn boots found a place by the door, his collection of books on sustainable agriculture nestled amongst her art volumes, a small, thriving herb garden sprouted on the balcony under his patient care. The integration felt surprisingly seamless, largely because of Maya. Elias possessed a quiet, innate understanding of the little girl, never trying too hard, simply being there. He helped her build elaborate Lego castles, patiently answered her endless questions about why the sky was blue or how worms helped the soil, and read bedtime stories with a gentle cadence that often lulled Isabel herself towards peace. He wasn't replacing Maya's father, he was carving out his own unique space, becoming a figure of steady warmth and playful curiosity in her young life, a role Maya embraced with open arms. Professionally, too, their worlds merged. Elias formally joined Aura Cosmetics as a special advisor for the Pure Nature line, his title reflecting the unique value he brought. He wasn't a boardroom strategist, but his grounded knowledge of organic farming practices and his network among ethical growers became invaluable. He lent an unshakable authenticity to the brand, traveling occasionally to meet with suppliers, ensuring the reality on the ground matched the promises on their labels. Isabel navigated the complexities of the Summit partnership, leveraging her business acumen, while Elias anchored the brand's soul, a constant reminder of the why that fueled its success. It was a true partnership, built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to doing things the right way. One crisp autumn afternoon, almost a year after their first meeting, Elias drove Isabel upstate to Willow Creek Farm. The air was sharp, the leaves a riot of crimson and gold. He led her not to the main house, but down a familiar path towards the secluded lotus pond. The flowers themselves were long gone, replaced by sturdy seed pods, but the place held its quiet magic. They stood in comfortable silence for a few moments, watching the breeze ripple the water's surface. Then Elias turned to her, his clear eyes serious, yet soft. "Isabel," he began, his voice quiet but resonant. "Before I met you and Maya, my life had found a certain peace, yes. But it was a solitary peace." He took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. "You too, you filled spaces I didn't even know were empty. You brought light, laughter, challenge." He smiled faintly. "And more joy than I thought possible." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, simple wooden box. Inside, nestled on dark velvet, wasn't a large diamond, but a ring crafted from recycled gold, interwoven with a thin band of dark, polished wood he'd sourced himself from a fallen branch on the farm. It was simple, elegant, and utterly him. "You completely changed my life, Isabel Vance," he said softly. "Will you build the rest of it with me? With Maya?" Tears welled in Isabel's eyes, blurring the image of the man standing before her, offering a future she hadn't dared to dream of. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, yes, Elias. Forever, yes." Their wedding wasn't announced in the society pages. It took place the following spring, under a canopy of new green leaves at Willow Creek Farm. An intimate gathering of their closest friends, family, and the key Aura team members who had weathered the storm with Isabel. Maya, radiant in a simple white dress, acted as flower girl, solemnly scattering petals down the grassy aisle. Instead of stiff formality, there was laughter, heartfelt toasts, and simple, delicious food prepared largely from the farm's bounty. John Minho from Summit Holdings attended, raising a glass with a respectful nod towards Isabel. "Proof," he remarked quietly to a colleague, gesturing towards the happy couple, "that authenticity isn't just good ethics, it's damn good business." A year later, the garden of Isabel's city home, now their home, buzzed with the happy chaos of Maya's 7th birthday party. One corner boasted Elias's thriving vegetable patch, a splash of rustic charm against the urban backdrop, while Isabel's curated roses bloomed nearby. Maya ran squealing with her friends as Isabel and Elias sat watching, hands intertwined. "Happy?" he asked, his thumb tracing patterns on her skin. Isabel leaned her head against his shoulder, a contented sigh escaping her lips. "More than I ever thought possible," she murmured, watching her daughter beam beside a brightly frosted cake. The journey hadn't been easy, the path utterly unexpected, but the arrival? It was better than anything she could have planned. The sunlight dappled through the leaves, illuminating their small circle, a testament to the unexpected, beautiful future they were building, one shared moment at a time. The sunlight dappled through the leaves, illuminating their small circle, a testament to the unexpected, beautiful future they were building, one shared moment at a time. Years spun into a tapestry woven with the threads of such moments, each one adding depth and color to their integrated life. Aura Cosmetics continued its impressive trajectory, globally recognized not just for its exquisite products but for the unwavering authenticity underpinning the Pure Nature line, a commitment Elias ensured remained more than just marketing copy. Willow Creek Farm, too, had flourished under his and Isabel's joint vision, expanding its organic operations and even opening a small educational center focused on sustainable living practices, a quiet passion project for Elias that resonated deeply with the local community. Isabel herself had found a new rhythm. Having meticulously built a capable executive team she trusted, she'd consciously delegated more of the day-to-day operations, reclaiming precious time. Time for unhurried weekend breakfasts, for walks in the park with Maya, now a bright, curious 12-year-old with her father's love for nature and her mother's sharp intellect, and for quiet evenings with Elias. She even found fulfillment in mentoring aspiring female entrepreneurs, sharing her journey with a candor that often surprised them, emphasizing resilience over ruthless ambition. Sometimes, driving upstate for a weekend at the farm, they'd take the scenic route, the one that inevitably led them past that quiet, leaf-strewn stretch of road where a broken-down SUV had once represented the nadir of Isabel's carefully controlled world. They rarely spoke much when they passed it. Just a shared glance, a soft smile exchanged, a silent acknowledgement of the profound serendipity, the sheer unlikelihood of it all. The place where everything went wrong, and somehow, set everything right. One quiet evening, watching the city lights begin to prick the twilight sky from her living room window, Isabel found herself reflecting, a familiar sense of quiet gratitude washing over her. She remembered the woman she used to be, driven, relentless, measuring success in market share and profit margins, equating happiness with achieving the next milestone, the next acquisition. That woman would have deemed the car breakdown an unmitigated disaster, a failure. How little she knew then. Life's journey, she mused, rarely followed the meticulously plotted business plan. True happiness, she'd discovered, wasn't minted in boardrooms or reflected in stock prices. It was quieter. It resided in the easy laughter shared with Maya over homework, in the comfortable silence enjoyed with Elias after a long day, in the simple satisfaction of seeing the vegetable patch thrive under his care. It was in the connection forged through shared vulnerability, the love that had unexpectedly bloomed between two people from vastly different worlds. Authenticity, embracing her own past struggles, championing ethical practices at Aura, cherishing the grounded reality Elias represented, had yielded far richer rewards than she could have ever imagined. He had taught her the beauty of slowing down, of connecting with the earth, while she, perhaps, had encouraged him to share his quiet gifts with a wider world. Mutual growth, unexpected and profound. The real unexpected gifts in life often arrive disguised as problems. That day on the roadside, what felt like the worst kind of luck had, in fact, been the catalyst for everything that truly mattered. It had brought her Elias. It had forced a detour onto a path leading not just to redefine success, but to a depth of love and contentment she hadn't known was possible. True wealth, she finally understood, wasn't measured by the numbers in a bank account, but by the richness of the love held within one's heart. And her life, intertwined with the quiet farmer who'd once fixed her car, was, by that measure, the most successful she could ever have hoped for.